Sitting on the cold floor, Morgan is out of herself, her back against the wall, empty eyes fixed on the ceiling. Beside her lies an empty blister pack of pills. Her hands tremble. She breathes slowly, as if each inhale were a painful effort. The silence is almost deafening, until from outside the door, there's a loud knock. "Morgan?" Mike's voice is muffled, but filled with urgency. "Morgan, are you in there?" She doesn't answer, doesn't move. She just keeps staring into nothing, as if his voice came from another world, one she no longer belongs to. Another knock, harder this time. "Morgan, please. Open the door." Silence. Mike starts rattling the doorknob desperately. The metallic sound echoes through the empty hallway of the house. He bangs his fist against the wood. "For God's sake, Morgan, what are you doing in there? Talk to me." Morgan closes her eyes slowly. A single tear rolls down the side of her face, leaving a faint gleam in the dim light. Her lips move, but no sound comes out. She tries to say something, maybe "I'm sorry," maybe "I can't anymore." But the words get stuck in her throat, strangled by pain. On the other side of the door, Mike presses his forehead against the wood, breathing heavily. "Think about Joshua, Morgan. Please. He needs you. I need you." But she can't think anymore. The pain is too heavy. The guilt weighs so much it crushes her chest, steals her breath, erases her will to exist. The feeling of being a failed mother, a failed wife, a failed person consumes her completely. It's as if a black hole had opened inside her, swallowing all light, all hope, every reason to keep going. Suddenly, the sound of wood cracking. Mike breaks down the door with his shoulder. It gives way after 2 violent hits. He rushes in, stumbles on the rug, and freezes at the sight before him. Morgan is there, alive but gone. The empty bottles beside her tell the story she can't put into words. Mike falls to his knees next to her, cupping her face in his trembling hands. His palms are sweaty, his eyes wide with panic. "No, no, no, no. Morgan, look at me. Look at me." She opens her eyes slowly, but there's no life in them. Only a deep, ancient exhaustion, as if she had lived 1,000 lives, and every one of them ended in pain. How many? How many pills did you take?" He shakes the empty bottles, trying to understand. Morgan doesn't answer. She just looks at him with an expression of silent apology. Mike grabs his phone with trembling hands and dials 911. His voice comes out hoarse, desperate. "I need an ambulance. My wife, I think she took too many pills. Please come fast." As he shouts the address into the phone, he holds Morgan against his chest, stroking her hair. "You're not going to die. I won't let you. You hear me? I won't let you." But deep inside Morgan's chest, another voice whispers the opposite. She was already dead inside. This was just the physical confirmation of something that had happened months ago, when everything fell apart. The screen lights up again, this time in warm, gentle tones. The camera glides through a small, charming shop, filled with neatly arranged shelves. There are sensory pillows of different textures, colorful wooden toys, cubes that make various sounds, non-slip mats, and soft, adjustable lighting. Everything has been thoughtfully designed to welcome neurodivergent children and their families with love. At the entrance, a hand-painted wooden sign reads, "The Cozy Corner, where every child is special." Morgan stands behind the counter, organizing delivery packages. She wears a beige apron with the shop's logo hand-embroidered on it. Her hair is tied in a loose bun, a few strands falling across her face. She's on the phone, smiling as she speaks. "Yes, ma'am. The weighted pillows are made to order. We use hypoallergenic fabric, and the weight is evenly distributed. They really help with anxiety and sensory regulation." She pauses, listening. "Yes, you can pick it up tomorrow afternoon. I'll have it ready for you." She hangs up and writes something in a notebook. There's a sense of purpose in her movements. This shop isn't just a business. It's an extension of the love she feels for her son. Every product was chosen with Joshua in mind, how it could help him, and how it could help other children like him. The door opens, the delicate sound of a little bell filling the room. Mike walks in, holding Joshua's hand. The boy is 8 years old, with messy brown hair and large, expressive eyes. He's holding a blue sensory cube, spinning it in his hands, fascinated by the clicks and sounds it makes. Morgan looks up at them, and her face lights up. She steps out from behind the counter and crouches down, opening her arms. "Hey, my love. How was therapy today?" Joshua runs to her, but doesn't speak. Instead, he presses his hands against her face, his way of saying "I love you." Morgan smiles and kisses his small, soft palms. "I love you too, Joshua." Mike watches the scene with a quiet smile, but there's something in his eyes, a shadow, faint but real. Weariness, worry, something he tries to hide, but it lingers there, unspoken. "He did really well today," Mike says, leaning against the counter. "The therapist said he's making progress with nonverbal communication." "That's amazing." Morgan stands, lifting Joshua into her arms, even though he's getting big for it. He rests his head on her shoulder, still spinning the cube. "You're getting more amazing every day, you know that?" Mike lets out a quiet laugh, but the smile doesn't reach his eyes. "Have you eaten?" Morgan asks, adjusting Joshua on her hip. "Not yet. I was thinking about grabbing something on the way. There's a lunchbox in the back fridge. I made it last night." "Thanks." He hesitates, as if he wants to say something else, but just nods and walks toward the back of the store. Morgan watches him go, a strange tightness forming in her chest. Something feels different between them. She can't quite name it, but there's a distance, something growing quietly, invisibly. As if, little by little, they're becoming strangers who share the same house, the same routine, the same child. Joshua tugs at her sleeve, pointing toward a shelf with new toys. Morgan smiles and takes him over, explaining each item with infinite patience. But deep inside, that ache in her chest doesn't go away. That night, the house was quiet. Joshua had fallen asleep early, exhausted from therapy and the day's activities. Morgan was finishing the dinner dishes while Mike sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by papers, bills, invoices, bank statements, all spread out like pieces of an impossible puzzle. He held his head in both hands, his fingers pressing against his temples. The look on his face was one of defeat. Morgan dried her hands on a towel and approached him, holding a cup of tea she had made for him. She placed it gently beside the papers. "Here, it'll help you relax." Mike looked at the cup but didn't pick it up. He just let out a deep sigh. Morgan sat beside him, sensing the weight of the situation. "Is everything okay?" He gave a short, humorless laugh. "Everything's far from okay, Morgan." She frowned, pulling a few papers toward her. Her eyes moved quickly over the numbers. The shop's rent, Joshua's therapy sessions, 3 times a week, each costing more than $200. The materials for the store's products, the tuition for his special school, the health insurance, the mortgage. "But the store's doing well," she said, confused. "Not well enough." Mike pushed a bill toward her. "We've been in the red for 3 months. I've been covering it with my paycheck, but I can't anymore. We need to cut something." Morgan felt her stomach twist. "Cut what?" "I don't know. Maybe reduce Joshua's therapy sessions. Or maybe..." He hesitated, avoiding her eyes. "Or maybe what?" "Maybe close the shop." The words hit like a bomb. Morgan felt as if the ground had been ripped out from under her feet. "You're not serious." "I am, Morgan. We're bleeding money. We can't keep it up. That store means everything to me, Mike." Her voice was rising, though she tried to keep it low so as not to wake Joshua. "I built that place from nothing, thinking about our son, about helping other families like ours. I know that." Mike stood, running his hands over his face. "But a beautiful dream doesn't help if we're drowning in debt. I haven't slept properly in months, Morgan. I'm working 12 hours a day, trying to keep us afloat, and it's still not enough." Morgan stood too, her eyes brimming with tears. "And you think I'm not tired? You think this is easy for me? Taking care of Joshua, running the store, trying to be a wife, a mother, a business owner, all at once? Then maybe we have to choose." Mike exploded and instantly regretted it when he saw the look on her face. A heavy silence filled the kitchen. Morgan sat down again slowly, as if her legs could no longer bear her weight. "What are you trying to say, Mike?" He looked away. "Nothing. Forget it." "No. Say it. Morgan, say it." He took a deep breath, and when he spoke, His voice was low, tired, and full of resignation. "I don't know if I can do this anymore." Morgan felt her heart stop. She knew he wasn't just talking about the bills. "Do what?" Her voice was a fragile whisper. Mike didn't answer. He just looked at her, and in his eyes there was guilt, exhaustion, and something she didn't want to name: surrender. She stood slowly, took the cup of tea she had made for him, still untouched, now cold, and carried it to the sink. Turning her back to him, she gripped the edge of the counter, trying to breathe. "Go to bed, Mike. We'll talk tomorrow." But they both knew there would be no talk. There was only a fracture growing between them, invisible, but deep, that would soon become an abyss. 2 weeks passed in an uncomfortable silence. Mike grew more and more distant. He came home late, left early, barely looked Morgan in the eye. She tried to keep the routine going, but the feeling that something was terribly wrong ate away at her from the inside. It was on a Thursday afternoon that everything fell apart. Morgan was organizing the office in the back of the store when she found a folder she didn't recognize. It was hidden under a pile of old receipts. Curious, she opened it. Inside were documents, contracts, bank statements, and the more she read, the sicker she felt. Unauthorized bank transfers, money being moved from the store's account to one she didn't recognize, sales recorded in the internal system but not declared in the official books. And worst of all, Mike's signature next to Camila's, her business partner, her best friend since she was 17, on a document for partial dissolution of the partnership. Morgan had to sit down. Her hands were trembling so badly the papers nearly slipped from her grasp. She reread everything 3 times, as if hoping the words would change, that it was some mistake, some misunderstanding. But it wasn't. Camila and Mike were stealing from the store. They were planning to push her out of the business. They were together? Morgan covered her mouth, feeling bile rise in her throat. She ran to the back bathroom and vomited. When she was done, she splashed cold water on her face, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Her eyes were red, hollow, desperate. How did I not see it? She went back to the office, grabbed the documents, shoved them into a bag, and left the store without saying a word to anyone. She drove straight home. When Mike came home that night, at 10:30, Morgan was sitting in the living room in the dark. Only the lamp beside the couch was on, casting dramatic shadows across her face. The documents were spread across the coffee table in front of her. Mike opened the door, flipped on the entry light, and froze when he saw her there. "Morgan, what are you doing up?" She didn't answer. She just looked at him, and in her eyes was so much pain that Mike felt a chill run down his spine. He walked in slowly, closing the door behind him. Then he saw the papers on the table. His face went pale. "Morgan, I can explain." "Then explain." Her voice was cold, controlled, but trembling at the edges. Mike sat on the opposite couch, keeping his distance. He took a deep breath, running a hand through his hair. "You weren't supposed to find out like this." "How was I supposed to find out, Mike?" "When you two pushed me out of my own store. When I'd already lost everything." "It's not like that." "Then tell me what it's like." Her voice finally cracked. "You're stealing money. You're robbing me." "We're not robbing you." Mike stood, agitated. "I've put just as much into that store as you have. I have a right to a share. You have a right to a share, not to hide things from me, not to forge documents, not to team up with Camila to take me out of my own business." Mike fell silent. Guilt was written all over his face. Morgan stood up, grabbing one of the documents and shoving it in front of him. "This contract here, partial dissolution of the partnership. You and Camila planning to split the profits between you two. Cutting me out." She threw the paper at him. "And this, weekly transfers to a joint account in your names." He didn't deny it. Morgan felt tears burning her eyes, but she held them back. She wasn't going to cry. Not yet, not in front of him. "How long?" "Morgan." "How long, Mike? How long have you been with her?" Silence. "How long?" 6 months, he finally confessed, voice low, ashamed. Morgan felt as if she'd been punched in the stomach. 6 months. Half a year. While she cared for Joshua alone on the nights, he said he was working late. While she tried to save the marriage, the store, her sanity. While she trusted him, trusted her best friend. trusted the life she thought they had built together. She stepped back, hand pressed to her chest, struggling to breathe. I trusted you. I trusted her. You two were everything to me. Morgan, I'm sorry. I swear I didn't want it to happen like this. We got close when you were always busy with Joshua, with the store. I felt alone. Alone? She let out a bitter, humorless laugh. You felt alone. And you think I didn't? You think it's easy for me? Caring for an autistic child, dealing with his meltdowns, his therapies, the financial stress, and still trying to be a good wife. I know it hasn't been easy, but we've been lost, Morgan. We haven't really talked in months. We haven't been a couple in months. So the solution was to betray me? To steal from me? Mike had no answer. Morgan took a deep breath, wiping away the tears that finally began to fall. I want a divorce. Mike looked up, startled. Morgan, I want you to pack your things and leave my house. Now, we need to talk about Joshua. No, we don't. You're leaving. And tomorrow, I'm calling a lawyer. Mike took a step toward her, but Morgan raised her hand to stop him. Don't touch me. Don't you dare. He froze, took a deep breath, then resigned. He went upstairs to the bedroom, grabbed some clothes, and came back down. Before leaving, he stopped at the door, looking at her one last time. I still care about you, Morgan. And about Joshua. That doesn't change. Morgan didn't reply. She just looked away. When the door closed behind him, she collapsed to the floor, wrapped her arms around her knees, and cried until there were no tears left. The following days were a painful blur. Morgan tried to keep up with her routine, but she couldn't. She woke up late, after the alarm went off 6 times. Skipped breakfast because the thought of food made her stomach turn. Forgot to shower. Forgot to brush her hair. Joshua noticed. He always noticed. Every morning, he would climb into her bed with difficulty and just stare at her until she finally opened her eyes. Then, as he always did, he'd place his small hands on her face and wait. "Good morning, my love," Morgan would say, forcing a smile. But Joshua wasn't fooled. He saw the sadness in her eyes. He felt the difference in her hugs. And little by little, he began to shut down too. Morgan tried to keep the store running, but she didn't have the strength. Camila had taken over everything, and when Morgan showed up, she was treated like an intruder in her own business. The conversations were cold, mechanical, until one day, Camila walked into the office where Morgan was trying to organize some paperwork and said bluntly, "I think you should stay home for a while, Morgan. Let Mike and me handle things here." Morgan stared at her in disbelief. "You're kicking me out of my own store?" Camila sighed, as if talking to a stubborn child. "I'm not kicking you out. I'm saying you're not well. Anyone can see that. You're going to sink the business if you keep going like this. I built this store, Camila. Me. Every shelf, every product, every detail was thought out by me. And I invested money. And time. And Mike did too. We all have equal rights. Not when you're embezzling funds and forging documents." Camila crossed her arms, her face hardening. "If you have proof of that, go ahead and sue us. Until then, I suggest you leave before I call security." Morgan felt anger boiling inside her, but she was too exhausted to fight. She just grabbed her bag, looked at Camila one last time, the woman who had once been her best friend, her confidant, her sister in all but blood, and walked out. And she never went back. The store officially closed 2 weeks later. Camila and Mike kept everything. The inventory, the suppliers, the clients. Morgan signed the papers without reading, without fighting, without strength. She simply gave up. Joshua's therapies were suspended. There was no more money. Mike took over caring for the boy, saying it was temporary, until Morgan got better. But days became weeks, and Morgan sank deeper and deeper. She started taking pills to sleep, then pills to wake up, then pills to feel nothing at all. Her apartment, a small, lifeless place she rented after leaving home, became a reflection of her inner chaos. Clothes everywhere, dirty dishes piled in the sink, curtains always drawn. Morgan spent her days lying on the couch, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Joshua. He's better off without me. I'm a burden in his life. He deserves a better mother. Those thoughts echoed in her head endlessly. like a scratched record playing the same sad song forever. Meanwhile, at Mike's house, Joshua was not doing well. He had stopped eating properly. Mike would place his favorite dish in front of him, plain buttered pasta, nothing mixed in. But Joshua would just stare at it and push it away. "Son, you need to eat," Mike said, trying to stay patient. Joshua shook his head, clutching the sensory cube that Morgan had given him. He never let go of that cube. He slept with it, woke up with it, took it everywhere. Mike tried to talk to him, but Joshua wouldn't respond. He already struggled with verbal communication, and now he was completely shut down. Camila tried to get closer. She baked cookies, offered new toys, tried to play with him, but Joshua pushed her away, turning his face every time she approached. To him, she was the intruder, the one who had taken his mother's place. One night, Mike went into Joshua's room and found him sitting in the corner, rocking back and forth, the cube pressed tightly against his chest. Silent tears were streaming down his little face. Mike sat down beside him on the floor, his heart tightening. "What's wrong, son?" Joshua didn't look at him. He just kept rocking. "Do you want to see Mommy?" At the sound of the word Mommy, Joshua stopped rocking. He looked at Mike with those big, sad eyes and nodded. Mike sighed, running his hand through his hair. "You're going to see her. I promise. This weekend, we'll go visit her." But Joshua shook his head vigorously, as if to say, that's not enough. He wanted his mother back. Not a visit, not an hour a week. He wanted the mother who hugged him every night, who sang him to sleep, who understood his silences. Mike didn't know what to say. He just held his son, and for the first time in months, allowed himself to feel the full weight of the guilt for what he had done. It happened on a cold August night. Mike had taken Joshua to spend the weekend at his grandmother's house. Morgan was alone in the empty apartment. She hadn't slept in days, only drifted off in short, restless naps, waking up startled, drenched in sweat, from nightmares where Joshua called out to her and she couldn't reach him. That night, she sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the bottle of pills on the nightstand. Clonazepam, fluoxetine, zolpidem. So many names, so many promises of relief. "I just want to stop feeling." She picked up the first bottle, opened it, poured a few pills into the palm of her hand, looked at them as if they were the answer to all her pain. Then she swallowed them, without water, feeling them scrape down her throat. She took the second bottle, repeated the process, and the third. When she was done, she lay down on the bed, staring at the ceiling. She felt her body grow heavy, her eyelids closing, the pain finally fading. "I'm sorry, Joshua. You deserve better." And then, everything went dark. Hours later, Mike arrived at Morgan's apartment. He had forgotten some important documents and needed to pick them up. He knocked on the door. No answer. He knocked again. Silence. Something inside him screamed that something was wrong. He used the spare key he still had and went inside. The apartment was completely silent. Dark, cold. "Morgan?" No response. He turned on the living room light. Empty. He went to the kitchen. Empty. Then he went upstairs to the bedroom, and he found her, lying on the bed, motionless, with empty pill bottles beside her. His heart stopped. For a moment, he thought she was dead, but then he saw her chest rise and fall slightly. No, 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 no. He ran to her, shaking her. "Morgan, Morgan, wake up. For God's sake." Nothing. He grabbed his phone, hands trembling so badly he almost dropped it, and called emergency services. "I need an ambulance. Now. My wife took too many pills." He shouted the address, his voice breaking with every word. Then he threw the phone on the floor and went back to Morgan, holding her face with both hands. "You're not going to die. Do you hear me? I won't let you." He ran to the bathroom, filled a glass with water, returned, and tried to get her to drink, but she didn't respond. He rolled her onto her side, afraid she might choke. His hands shook uncontrollably as he stroked her hair. "Please hang on. The ambulance is coming. Please, Morgan." The minutes felt like hours. Mike kept talking to her, as if his voice alone could bring her back. "Remember when we met? You had that smile that could light up any room. And when Joshua was born, you cried so much from happiness. You are the best mother he could ever have. He needs you. I need you. Finally, the distant sound of a siren. Mike ran to the window, waving desperately. Paramedics burst in with a stretcher and equipment. They quickly assessed Morgan, put an oxygen mask on her, checked her vital signs. How many did she take? One of the paramedics asked. I don't know. Mike showed the empty bottles. There were 3 full ones. How long ago? I don't know. I just got here. They placed Morgan on the stretcher, hooked up in 4, and started emergency procedures as they carried her downstairs. Mike followed, tripping over his own feet, his heart pounding so hard he felt it might explode. In the ambulance, he held her hand the whole time, watching the monitors, praying those numbers didn't stop flashing. Will she be okay? He asked, his voice weak. The paramedic looked at him with a serious expression. We did everything we can. Now it's up to her. Morgan woke up in a white, sterile room. Fluorescent lights on the ceiling blinded her for a moment. There were tubes connected to her arm, a monitor beside the bed beeping steadily. Her mouth was dry, her head throbbed, and her whole body felt like lead. She slowly turned her head and saw Mike. He was sitting in the chair beside the bed, his head in his hands, shoulders slumped. There was a deep exhaustion in his posture. When he heard her move, he lifted his head. His eyes were red and swollen. Morgan. She immediately looked away, turning her face to the other side. Don't talk to me. Her voice came out hoarse, weak, but filled with pain. Morgan, you almost died. That's what I wanted. Mike felt as if he had been punched. He stood up, moving closer to the bed, but keeping a respectful distance. Don't say that. Why not? It's the truth. She still wouldn't look at him. I have nothing left. I lost everything. The shop, you, my son. You didn't lose Joshua. I did. He's with you. He's better off without me. That's not true. Morgan finally turned her face toward him, and the look she gave him was filled with such deep pain that Mike had to look away. I can't do this anymore, Mike. I tried. I swear I tried. But I can't. The pain doesn't go away. Every day I wake up, it's like someone's putting a stone on my chest. And every day the stone gets heavier. Until yesterday, I just couldn't carry it anymore. Mike sat on the edge of the bed, eyes glistening. I'm sorry. For everything. For Camila. For the shop. For abandoning you when you needed me the most. I was a coward. It's too late for apologies. I know. But I need you to know. And I need you to know that Joshua loves you. He's not okay without you. He doesn't eat. He doesn't sleep. He doesn't talk to anyone. He just keeps holding that cube you gave him. Morgan closed her eyes, tears rolling down her cheeks. He'll forget about me. Kids forget. Not kids like Joshua. He doesn't forget. He feels you. He knows when you're near, when you're sad, when you need him. And he needs you too. Morgan sobbed, bringing her hand to her face. I can't take care of him. I can't even take care of myself. Mike took a deep breath. He knew what he had to say, but the words burned in his throat. That's why. I'm going to ask for full custody. Morgan opened her eyes, looking at him in despair. No. You need help, Morgan. You need treatment. And while you're not well, I'll take care of him. Don't take him from me, Mike. Please. He's all I have. I'm not taking him forever. Just until you get better. You'll be able to visit him. You'll have support. But now you need to take care of yourself first. Morgan tried to sit up, but her strength failed her. She fell back onto the pillow, crying uncontrollably. I'm his mother. I can't lose him. I can't. Mike held her hand, squeezing it tightly. You won't lose him. I promise. But you have to stay alive. And you have to get help. For Joshua. For yourself. Please. Morgan couldn't answer. She just cried, feeling as if her heart was being torn from her chest. The doctors recommended voluntary psychiatric hospitalization. Morgan didn't have the strength to refuse. She was transferred to a clinic specializing in the treatment of severe depression and suicidal ideation. The first days were the hardest. She barely got out of bed, refused meals, refused to participate in group therapy. She just sat by the window in her room, watching life happen outside, feeling completely disconnected from it. A psychiatrist named Dr. Teresa met with her every day. She was a middle-aged woman, gray hair tied in a low bun, her eyes kind but firm. "Morgan, you need to eat something," she said, pushing a tray of light food toward her. "I'm not hungry." "It's not about being hungry. It's about keeping your body functioning. Your son needs you alive and healthy." At the word son, Morgan finally looked at her. "I'm not a good mother." "Who told you that?" "I did. I can't take care of him. I almost died and left him alone." Dr. Teresa sat on the edge of the bed, her expression gentle but serious. "You're sick, Morgan. Depression is an illness. Just like diabetes, like cancer, like any other. You didn't choose to be this way. And you're not weak for being this way. You just need treatment. But I should be strong for my son. You are strong. Stronger than you think. You know how I know that? Because you're still here. You survived. And now you're willing to fight. That's strength." Morgan wanted to believe those words, but the guilt was too heavy. The weeks at the clinic dragged on. There were individual therapy sessions, group therapy, medications being constantly adjusted, recreational activities. Little by little, Morgan began to participate, not because she wanted to, but because she knew that if she didn't, she'd never see Joshua again. She met other women there, mothers who had also reached their breaking point, women who understood the guilt, the pain, the feeling of being a burden to their own children. They formed a silent support network, simply listening to one another, sharing tears and small victories. One of them, a woman named Beatrice, said something that touched Morgan deeply. "We're not bad mothers for being sick. We're human, and our children need to know that even mothers make mistakes, get sick, fall down, but they also get back up." 3 weeks later, Morgan was discharged from the clinic with a recommendation to continue outpatient treatment. 2 days after her release, she was summoned to a custody hearing. She entered the courtroom with a public defender she barely knew. She wore simple clothing, her face pale, dark circles under her eyes. Her hair was tied back in a low, lifeless ponytail. Across the room, Mike sat next to Camila and their private attorney. Mike avoided looking directly at Morgan, but Camila stared at her with a mixture of pity and satisfaction. The judge, Dr. Renata Alves, a middle-aged woman with thin-rimmed glasses and a stern expression, entered. Everyone stood. "You may sit." She opened the case file, skimmed through it quickly, and began. "We are here to decide on the custody of the minor, Joshua Miguel Santos, 8 years old, diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. The mother, Mrs. Morgan Alves Santos, is accused of emotional neglect and was recently hospitalized following a suicide attempt. The father, Mr. Mike Santos, requests full custody with supervised visitation by the mother." She looked at Morgan. "Mrs. Morgan, do you understand the gravity of the situation?" Morgan swallowed hard, hands trembling in her lap. "Yes, Your Honor. You attempted to take your own life while having legal responsibility for a child. Can you explain why you did this?" Morgan took a deep breath, feeling all the tears she had held back, threatening to spill. I was very sick. I wasn't thinking clearly. I thought my son would be better off without me. I thought I was a burden in his life. And now, do you still think that way?" No, her voice faltered. She cleared her throat. "I understand that I was wrong. I love my son more than anything, and I know he needs me. I was so lost that I couldn't see it." The judge took notes. "Have you undergone psychiatric treatment?" "Yes, 3 weeks in a clinic, and now I'm continuing outpatient care." "And how do you intend to ensure that you will not put the child at risk again?" Morgan looked at her hands, struggling to find the right words. "I will continue treatment. I will take my medication. I will attend therapy. I will do everything necessary. Just please, don't take me away from my son." The judge turned to Mike. "Mr. Mike, do you believe the mother represents a danger to the child?" Mike hesitated. He looked at Morgan for the first time and saw the pain in those eyes. The woman he had loved. The woman who had cared for their child with so much love. The woman he had destroyed. He took a deep breath. "I don't think she wants to hurt Joshua, but I do think she is not in a position to care for him alone right now." The judge nodded. "And you?" She looked at Camila. "Do you have any role in the child's life?" Camila straightened in her chair. "Yes, Your Honor. Mike and I are together, and I have been helping take care of Joshua. And what is the child's relationship with you? Camila opened her mouth to answer, but Morgan's attorney stood up. Your Honor, I would like to question this witness. The judge nodded, allowing it. The attorney turned to Camila. You were Mrs. Morgan's business partner in the therapeutic craft store, correct? Yes. And you began an extramarital relationship with Mr. Mike while still being Mrs. Morgan's business partner? Camila tensed. That has nothing to do with the child's custody. It has everything to do with it. The attorney held up documents. Because according to these bank statements, you and Mr. Mike diverted company funds, forcing Mrs. Morgan into emotional and financial ruin, which directly contributed to her depressive state. Mike closed his eyes, feeling the weight of his actions. The judge raised her hand, interrupting. This is a civil matter that should be addressed in another proceeding. Here, we are focusing solely on the child's well-being. She looked at everyone. I need to hear from someone who can provide a perspective on how the child is coping with the current situation. Is there a therapist, teacher, or social worker monitoring the minor? Mike answered, Yes, Your Honor. Social worker Helena Silva has been overseeing the supervised visits. The judge made a note. I will request a report from her before making any decision. Hearing adjourned for 2 weeks. She banged the gavel. Morgan felt a mix of relief and despair. 2 more weeks of uncertainty. 2 more weeks away from her son. The visitation room at the community center was cold and lifeless. White walls, gray linoleum floors, a few plastic chairs, and a low table with worn-out toys. There was a large glass window where the social worker could observe everything. Morgan sat in one of the chairs, her palms sweaty, her heartbeat uneven. She had done her best to look presentable, brushed her hair, put on clean clothes, tried to hide the dark circles with makeup. She wanted to look okay. She wanted Joshua to see she was getting better. The door opened. Joshua walked in, holding Mike's hand. When he saw Morgan, his eyes lit up. He let go of his father's hand and ran straight to her. Mommy. Morgan opened her arms, and when Joshua threw himself into them, she hugged him so tightly she could barely breathe. She buried her face in his hair, breathing in the scent of children's shampoo, feeling the warmth of his little body against hers. I missed you so much, my love. So much. Joshua pulled back slightly and did what he always did. Placed his tiny hands on her face, pressing her cheeks, looking deeply into her eyes. Morgan smiled through her tears. I love you too. More than anything in this world. Mike watched from the doorway, with Helena beside him. The social worker, a 60-year-old woman with short white hair and kind eyes, was taking notes on a clipboard. Morgan sat on the floor with Joshua. He had brought his sensory cube, the one she had given him months ago. He showed it to her, as if saying, Look, I took care of it. You took good care of it, Morgan said, spinning the cube gently, just like I taught you. Joshua smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. They played together. Morgan built blocks with him, read a picture book, softly sang the lullaby she used to sing. And for 40 minutes, she felt like a mother again. But then Helena tapped lightly on the glass door, signaling that time was up. Morgan felt her heart sink. She looked at Joshua. My love, we have to say goodbye for today. Joshua shook his head violently, clinging to her. No, Mommy, no. I know, but we'll see each other again soon. I promise. No. He started crying, holding her face. Mommy, stay. Morgan tried to hold back her tears, but she couldn't. I want to stay so badly, my love, but I can't right now. I'm going to get better. I'll be okay again, and then we'll be together. Can you trust me? Joshua sobbed uncontrollably, but nodded. Mike walked in, approaching cautiously. Come on, Joshua. We'll come back next week. No. Joshua clung even tighter to Morgan, burying his face in her chest. Mike tried to pull him away gently, but Joshua began to scream, a sharp, desperate sound that echoed through the small room. It was the kind of scream only autistic children in emotional overload make, a cry that comes from a place so deep in pain it breaks the heart of anyone who hears it. Joshua, please, Mike said, trying to calm him. We have to go. But Joshua didn't hear him. He was holding on to Morgan as if she were the only thing keeping him connected to the world. His tiny fingers gripped her blouse so tightly his knuckles turned white. Morgan rocked him gently, whispering in his ear, "It's okay, my love. It's okay. Mommy's here now. Mommy's here." But she knew it wasn't okay, and Joshua knew it too. Helena entered the room, approaching carefully. She knelt beside them, placing a gentle hand on Joshua's shoulder. "Joshua, look at me, sweetheart." He didn't look. He stayed buried in his mother's embrace. "Joshua, you'll see Mommy again. Next week. I promise." Slowly, very slowly, Joshua lifted his face. His eyes were red and swollen, his cheeks wet with tears. He looked at Helena, then at Morgan, and then did something that broke everyone's heart in the room. He took the sensory cube and placed it in Morgan's hands, closing her fingers around it. It was his most precious object, the only thing that comforted him, and he was giving it to his mother. Morgan sobbed, pressing the cube to her chest. "No, my love, that's yours. You need it." But Joshua shook his head, pushing the cube back toward her. He wanted her to have it. He wanted her to remember him. He wanted to give her something to comfort her, just as the cube comforted him. "Okay," Morgan whispered, tears streaming freely. "I'll take care of it, with all my love, and I'll give it back to you when we see each other again. Deal?" Joshua nodded, and then, with a strength he clearly didn't have, he let go of her and went to Mike. He took his father's hand, but didn't take his eyes off Morgan. Mike lifted him into his arms, and as they left, Joshua kept looking back, at the mother he loved but couldn't stay with. When the door closed, Morgan collapsed onto the floor, hugging the cube to her chest, crying in a way she hadn't cried since the day she tried to take her own life. Helena sat beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "He loves you so much." "I know," Morgan sobbed. "That's why it hurts so much." Helena helped her up, guided her to a chair, and sat next to her, waiting for her to calm down before speaking. "Morgan, I'm going to be honest with you. I have to write a report for the judge about this visit." Morgan wiped her face with her hands, trying to compose herself. "I know, and I'm going to write exactly what I saw. A boy who loves his mother desperately, and a mother who loves her son the same way." Helena paused. "But I'm also going to write that you're fighting, that you're trying, and that, in my professional opinion, separating you from Joshua completely is not what's best for him." Morgan looked at her, surprised. "Really? Children on the autism spectrum are especially sensitive to changes and separation. Joshua is suffering without you. Anyone can see it. He's not eating well, not sleeping. He's regressing in areas where he had made progress." Helena held Morgan's hand. "He needs you, but you need to be well to take care of him. So keep going with your treatment. Keep fighting, and show that judge you deserve your son back." Morgan squeezed her hand, feeling a small spark of hope light up inside her chest. "I will. I promise I will." Back home, Joshua was inconsolable. Mike tried to give him his favorite dinner, but he pushed the plate away. He tried to put him to bed, but Joshua just sat there, staring at the door, as if waiting for Morgan to walk through it at any moment. Camila tried to help, but every time she came close, Joshua screamed and shrank into the corner. "He doesn't accept me, Mike," she said, frustrated. "It's been months, and he still treats me like I'm a stranger. He just needs time." "How much time?" Camila crossed her arms. "We can't live like this forever. I've tried to be patient, but that boy doesn't want me. He only wants Morgan. He's a child, Camila, an autistic child who lost his mother all of a sudden. Of course he's hurting. And what about me? I'm hurting too. I try to help, to take care of him, and all I get is rejection." Mike ran his hand over his face, exhausted. "I don't know what you want me to do. I want you to decide. It's him or us." Mike looked at her, incredulous. "Did you just ask me to choose between you and my son?" Camila realized her mistake, but pride wouldn't let her take it back. "I'm just saying this can't keep going. Either we find a solution, or what?" She didn't answer. She just grabbed her purse and walked out, slamming the door behind her. Mike was left alone in the living room, staring at the stairs where Joshua was probably still awake, still waiting for the mother who wouldn't come. He went upstairs slowly, stopping at the doorway of his son's room. Joshua was sitting on the bed, hugging a pillow, rocking back and forth. He was softly humming, the lullaby Morgan used to sing. Mike felt his chest tighten. He walked in and sat at the edge of the bed. "Son, you need to sleep." Joshua stopped rocking, but didn't look at him. "Mommy, you'll see her again. Next week. Mommy home." Mike took a deep breath, searching for the right words. "Mommy can't come home right now. She needs to get better first." Joshua finally looked at him, and in his eyes was a silent, devastating question. "Why did you do this to her?" Mike couldn't hold the gaze. He lowered his head, feeling the crushing weight of his guilt. "I messed everything up, didn't I?" he whispered, more to himself than to Joshua. "I betrayed her. I stole from her. I took everything she had. And then I took you away too." Joshua didn't respond. He just kept looking, with those wide, honest eyes that saw things adults pretend not to see. Mike felt the tears burning. He hadn't cried since he was a boy, but now every wall he'd built began to crumble. "I'm so sorry, Joshua. I'm so sorry. I should have been better. For you. For her. I should have." He couldn't finish. He just covered his face with his hands and cried. Cried for the woman he loved and destroyed. Cried for the son who was suffering because of his choices. Cried for everything he'd broken and didn't know how to fix. Joshua watched him for a long moment. Then slowly, he moved closer and placed his tiny hand on his father's shoulder. It wasn't a hug. It wasn't forgiveness. It was just a child trying to comfort an adult who was as lost as he was. That night, after Joshua finally fell asleep, Mike sat in his home office, staring at the company documents. The store he and Camila had taken from Morgan was doing well, profitable, even expanding. But at what cost? He opened a drawer and took out an old photo. It was from the day the store opened. Morgan was in the center, smiling radiantly, holding the grand opening sign in one hand and Joshua in the other. Mike stood beside her, and Camila a little further away. That day, they had all looked happy. They all had dreams. They all believed they were building something beautiful together. When did I let all of that die? Mike picked up his phone and called Camila. She answered on the third ring. "What is it? We need to talk. Now. Now." 20 minutes later, Camila was back. She walked into the house with a defensive expression, arms crossed. "So, what's so urgent?" Mike stood in the living room, hands in his pockets, face serious. "I made a mistake." Camila frowned. "What are you talking about?" "Morgan. The store. Everything. We destroyed her, Camila. She destroyed herself. The depression, the suicide attempt, those were her choices." "No, they weren't." Mike's voice came out louder than he intended. He took a breath, trying to calm himself. "We caused that. I cheated on her. You, her best friend, betrayed her. We stole the business she built. We took everything from her. And then we act surprised she fell apart?" Camila stepped back, startled by his intensity. "Are you blaming me?" "I'm blaming us. Both of us. We did this to her. And what do you want to do now? Go back to her?" Her voice was laced with sarcasm, but also fear. Mike shook his head. "I don't know if she'd ever take me back. And I don't know if I deserve it. But I know my son is suffering. And I know the woman I once loved is broken because of what I did. So yeah, I need to fix this. And what about us?" Camila's voice was small and now fragile. "I don't know, Camila. But I know what we have was built on someone else's pain. And I can't live with that anymore." Camila was silent for a long moment. Then she grabbed her purse and walked to the door. "You're going to regret this." "I already do," Mike said quietly. "More than you can imagine." When she left, Mike went upstairs to Joshua's room. The boy was finally asleep. But even in sleep, dried tears stained his cheeks. Mike knelt beside the bed, gently brushing his son's hair. "I'm going to fix this. I promise. I'll bring your mom back. Somehow, I'll fix everything I broke." And that night, for the first time in months, Mike knew exactly what he had to do. He would fight for the woman he destroyed, not to have her back necessarily, but to return what was rightfully hers, her dignity, her store, and above all, the son she loved more than her own life. 2 weeks after the last visit, the custody hearing resumed. The courtroom was full, Morgan and her lawyer on one side, Mike and Camila on the other. But this time, there was a different tension in the air. Mike seemed uneasy, avoiding Camila's gaze, while she sat visibly irritated beside him. Judge Dr. Renata Alves entered, and and everyone stood. She sat down, adjusted her glasses, and opened a thick file. I have received a report from social worker Helena Silva. She looked around the room. I must say, it is one of the most detailed and moving reports I have read in my 20 years of practice. Morgan held her breath. The judge began reading aloud. During the 4 supervised visits I observed, I noted a deep and undeniable connection between the mother, Morgan Alves Santos, and her son Joshua. The child demonstrates severe separation anxiety, refuses adequate food, and shows behavioral regression when away from his mother. During the visits, Joshua calms immediately in Morgan's presence, responds to her commands, and demonstrates clear and affectionate nonverbal communication. The judge paused, looking at Morgan. I also observed that Mrs. Morgan is undergoing continuous treatment for major depression, attends all psychiatric and therapeutic appointments, and demonstrates genuine commitment to her recovery. I believe that prolonged separation between mother and child is causing more harm than benefit to the child. Morgan felt tears burning her eyes, but she held them back. She couldn't cry now. She needed to appear strong. The judge continued. As for the environment provided by the father, I note that the new partner, Mrs. Camila, has not established a bond with the child. Joshua demonstrates active rejection and defensive behavior in her presence. I strongly recommend that custody be reviewed, with the possibility of shared custody and gradual increase of time spent with the mother, under psychosocial supervision. Camila shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Mike, on the other hand, just stared at his own hands. The judge closed the report and looked at Mike. Mr. Mike, do you have anything to say before I make my decision? Everyone expected him to reaffirm the request for full custody, but to everyone's surprise, Mike stood slowly. Yes, Your Honor. I do. Camila looked at him, alarmed. Mike, what are you doing? He ignored her, keeping his eyes fixed on the judge. I would like to withdraw my request for full custody. The entire courtroom seemed to freeze. Morgan's lawyer looked at her, surprised. Morgan just stared at Mike, not understanding. The judge furrowed her brow. Are you sure about this? I am. Mike took a deep breath. I thought I was protecting my son by keeping him from his mother. But I was wrong. Very wrong. He finally looked at Morgan. My son needs his mother, and I have no right to take that from him just because I ruined everything. Camila stood up abruptly. Have you lost your mind? Sit down, Camila, Mike said firmly. I'm not sitting. We fought for this. You fought, Mike interrupted, finally looking at her. I was just cowardly enough to let it happen. But it's over. I won't be part of this anymore. Camila stared at him with a mixture of anger and shock, then grabbed her purse and left the courtroom, slamming the door behind her. The judge observed everything with an unreadable expression. Then she turned to Mike again. Do you understand that you are relinquishing full custody? I do, and I would like to propose shared custody, with Morgan having primary custody. Morgan covered her mouth with her hand, unable to believe what she was hearing. The judge made some notes, thoughtful. Very well. In light of the social worker's report and the father's statement, I hereby order the following. Shared custody will be established, with primary residence at the mother's home. The father will have the right to regular visits and active participation in the child's school and therapeutic activities. Mrs. Morgan will continue mandatory psychological follow-up for a minimum of 6 months, with monthly reports. Should there be any sign of neglect or serious relapse, custody will be immediately reviewed. She struck the gavel. It is decided. Morgan collapsed in her chair, crying. She had her son back. After months of hell, she finally had Joshua with her again. 3 days later, Morgan was home. The small apartment she had gradually furnished with the help of Dr. Teresa and a social program. It wasn't much, but it was clean, organized, and full of love. She had prepared everything for Joshua's arrival. His room had a new bed with Spider-Man sheets, his favorite, shelves with sensory toys, soft adjustable lights, and a cozy reading nook with plush cushions. When the doorbell rang, Morgan ran to the door, her heart racing. She opened it, and there he was. Joshua, backpack on his back and the sensory cube, the same one he had given her and she had cared for meticulously, in his hands. Mommy. He dropped his backpack and ran into her arms. Morgan lifted him, spinning with him, laughing and crying at the same time. "You're back. You're back home." Mike was at the door, holding the backpack Joshua had dropped. He watched the scene with a sad smile. Morgan put Joshua down and, for the first time in months, looked Mike in the eyes without anger. "Thank you," she whispered. "I should have done this a long time ago." Joshua grabbed Morgan's hand, wanting to show her something in his backpack. She followed him, and Mike stayed by the door, unsure whether to enter or leave. "Do you want to come in?" Morgan asked, turning to him, just to see where he's going to stay, to be at ease. Mike hesitated, then nodded. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. The apartment was small but welcoming. There were photos of Joshua everywhere, his drawings on the fridge, a comfortable sofa in the living room. It was simple, but it had something his home with Camila never had: warmth. Morgan led Mike to Joshua's room. The boy had already climbed onto the bed, testing the mattress, and was smiling. "Do you like it, my love?" Morgan asked. Joshua nodded enthusiastically. Mike looked around, noticing the care in every detail. The soft lights to avoid overstimulating him. The toys organized by texture and color. The visual routine chart on the wall. "You did all this?" "With the help of my therapist and some friends I made in the support group." Morgan smiled, running her hand through Joshua's hair. "I wanted him to feel safe here." Mike felt a lump at his throat. "He will." Joshua climbed down from the bed and took Mike's hand and Morgan's hand, joining them together. He looked at them as if to say, "You need to be friends." Morgan and Mike exchanged a glance, and for the first time in a long while, there was no anger, no resentment, just a silent understanding that, for the sake of this child, they needed to find a way to coexist. "We can make this work," Mike said. "For the right reasons this time." Morgan nodded. "For the right reasons." The first few weeks were an adjustment. Joshua was calmer, happier, but there were still difficult moments. He would wake up in the middle of the night, frightened, checking if Morgan was still there. She always was. She would sit on the edge of his bed, sing softly, hold his little hand until he fell back asleep. Morgan returned to the support group for mothers of atypical children. That's where she met Denise, a 40-year-old woman, mother of a 10-year-old autistic boy. Denise had gone through something similar: post-divorce depression, temporary loss of custody, rebuilding life from scratch. "You've made it this far," Denise told her after one of the meetings. "The hardest part is over." "I'm still afraid of relapsing," Morgan confessed. "What if I can't? What if I fall apart again?" "Then you get up again. And again. As many times as it takes." Denise held her hand. "But you're not alone now. We're here. And there's one more thing." "What?" "Have you ever thought about turning everything you went through into something bigger? Something that could help other mothers?" Morgan frowned. "What do you mean?" "You have experience with therapeutic products. You've lived as an atypical mother. You've gone through depression and recovery. Imagine how many mothers out there are going through what you went through. Alone, without support, not knowing that they can recover." A seed of an idea began to sprout in Morgan's mind. 2 weeks later, Morgan received an unexpected call. It was Mike. "Morgan, I need to talk to you. In person. It's important." They arranged to meet at a neutral cafe, far from anywhere that might bring back bad memories. When Morgan arrived, Mike was already there, a folder on the table in front of him. He looked nervous. "What is it? Did something happen with Joshua?" Morgan asked, worried. No. He's fine. It's about something else." He opened the folder and pushed documents toward her. Morgan looked, confused. There were papers about the store that had once been hers. "I don't understand." Mike took a deep breath. "I broke up with Camila. For good. And I dissolved the partnership with her." He pointed to the documents. "The store is now mine. Legally." "Mike, I don't want to hear about this. I don't want anything to do with that place anymore." "Wait. Listen to me." He pushed another document. "I'm transferring the store back to you. Completely. Inventory, clients, suppliers, everything." Morgan blinked, thinking she must have misheard. "What?" "That store was always yours, Morgan. The idea, the dream, the purpose. I ruined everything. But now I want to give back what's yours. No conditions. No partnership. Just you." Morgan looked at the papers, then at him, incredulous. Why are you doing this? Because I have to. Because I can't live with the weight of what I did. And because, he hesitated, because I still care about you. Not the way I used to. Maybe not the way you deserve, but I care. And I want you to be happy. I want you to rebuild the life I helped destroy. Morgan felt tears well up again, but this time they were different. Not of pain, but of surprise, relief, and a strange sensation she couldn't name. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just sign the papers. He pushed a pen toward her. And rebuild what was always yours. Morgan took the pen with trembling hands. She quickly read through the documents. Everything was there, clearly written. No tricks, no fine print. It was genuine. She signed. And when she looked up, there was a new determination in her eyes. I'm going to do things differently this time, she said. It won't just be a store. It will be something bigger. Mike smiled. I wouldn't expect anything less from you. Morgan threw herself fully into the project. With the help of Denise and other mothers from the support group, she not only reopened the store, she transformed it. The Espacio Aconchego became more than just a product store. It turned into a full support center. There was the Century Product Store, of course, but also weekly support groups for atypical mothers and fathers, affordable group therapy sessions, workshops on motherhood and mental health, a kids area where children could play while parents attended activities, partnerships with psychologists and occupational therapists. Morgan worked tirelessly. There were days she stayed late, organizing events, answering messages from desperate mothers, seeking partnerships. But it was a different kind of exhaustion, the exhaustion of someone building something meaningful. Joshua often went with her. He loved the kids area, where he could interact, in his own way, with other children. And the other mothers adored Morgan. She was not just a businesswoman. She was someone who truly understood. One afternoon, a young woman in her early 20s entered the store. She looked visibly shaken, deep dark circles under her eyes, hands trembling. She was holding a small child in her arms, a boy of about 3 years old who kept rocking constantly. Excuse me, I saw on Facebook about this place. Do you really help mothers? Morgan approached with a gentle smile. Yes, we do. How can I help you? The woman began to cry. My son was diagnosed with autism 2 months ago. My husband won't accept it. He says it's nonsense, that I spoil him too much. I'm alone in this. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm so tired. Morgan recognized that exhaustion, that pain, that despair. She guided the woman to a small reserved room, prepared a cup of tea, and sat with her. She just listened. Then, she shared her own story. When she finished, the woman looked at her with tears in her eyes. So, I'm not alone. Morgan smiled, holding her hand. You were never alone. And now, you have a place to come back to whenever you need it. 6 months after the reopening, Camila showed up at the store. Morgan was organizing the shelves when she heard the door chime. She turned and froze when she saw who it was. Camila looked different. Thinner, with dark circles under her eyes. Hair lacking the care it once had. She walked in slowly, looking around with an unreadable expression. Hi, Morgan. Morgan didn't know what to feel. Anger? Resentment? Indifference? What do you want here? Camila took a deep breath. I came to apologize. A heavy silence filled the store. Apologize? Morgan let out a humorless laugh. Do you think an apology erases what you did? It doesn't. I know. But I need to say it. I need you to know that I regret it. Every day. Why? Because you lost Mike? Because you lost the store? Because I lost you. Morgan blinked, surprised. Camila sat in one of the chairs in the lounge area, shoulders slumped. You were my best friend, my sister, and I betrayed you in the worst possible way. For a man, for money. I hate myself for that. I hated you too, Morgan admitted, crossing her arms. For a long time, I hated you so much it consumed me. And now, Morgan remained silent, thinking. Now, I don't feel anything anymore. Neither hate nor love. You're just someone I met once. Camila nodded, wiping a tear. I understand. And I'm not asking for forgiveness, expecting us to be friends again. I needed you to know that I understand how much I was wrong. And I see what you've built here." She looked around. "It's beautiful. It's exactly what you always wanted. And I'm so sorry for almost destroying it." Morgan felt something shift in her chest. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe never completely. But it was the beginning of something. Perhaps acceptance. Perhaps peace. "Thank you for coming." Camila stood up, nodded, and left. And Morgan stayed there, realizing that chapter had finally closed. Mike was changing too. After breaking up with Camila and returning the store to Morgan, he felt lost for a while. His life had revolved so much around selfish decisions that he didn't know who he was without them. He started therapy. He began picking up Joshua more often, not out of obligation, but because he genuinely wanted to be present. He attended school meetings, therapy sessions, and events at Morgan's store. And gradually, he and Morgan began to rebuild something. Not a marriage, not yet, maybe never, but a partnership, a friendship, a mutual respect. One afternoon, after dropping Joshua off at Morgan's house, he stayed to have coffee. They talked about simple things, how Joshua was progressing with speech, a new partnership Morgan was making with a clinic, life in general. In a moment of silence, Mike said, "I miss you. As a person, you know, not just as the mother of my child, but as you." Morgan looked at him, surprised. "Mike, I'm not asking for us to get back together. I know I don't deserve that. I needed you to know." Morgan remained quiet, processing. "I don't know what I feel for you," she said honestly. "Some days I look at you and only remember the pain. Some days I see how much you've changed, and I feel confused. I understand. But I know one thing." She looked into his eyes. "If one day, really one day, there's a possibility of something between us again, it will have to be built from scratch. No lies, no shortcuts. With honesty. And with time." Mike nodded. "I'm willing to wait as long as it takes." A year after regaining custody of Joshua, Morgan was called to his school for an unexpected meeting. She arrived worried, thinking something had happened. The teacher, Mrs. Anna, greeted her with a huge smile. "Morgan, I called you here because Joshua did something extraordinary today." "What happened? Is he okay?" "He's more than okay." He spoke. He said a full sentence. In front of the entire class, Morgan felt her legs go weak. Joshua rarely spoke. He communicated through gestures, looks, sounds. But complete words were rare and precious. "What did he say?" The teacher smiled, eyes misty. "Today we did an activity where each child had to talk about someone important in their life. Most talked about parents, grandparents, siblings. When it was Joshua's turn, we thought he would skip, as he usually does. But he stood up. Morgan's heart was in her throat, and he said clearly, 'My mom is the strongest person in the world. She fell, but she got up. For me.'" Morgan covered her mouth with her hands, tears flowing freely. "He said that?" "He did. And he didn't stop there. He took a drawing he had made, a drawing of you and him, holding hands, and showed it to everyone. It was the most beautiful moment I've witnessed in 20 years of teaching." Morgan couldn't hold back. She cried right there, in the teacher's room, out of gratitude, love, and relief. When Joshua left class, Morgan waited for him outside. He ran to her, and she picked him up, spinning him around. "I heard what you said today, and I'm so proud of you." Joshua pressed his forehead to hers, as he always did. "Strong, Mommy. You're strong too, my love. We're strong together." A year and a half after almost losing everything, Morgan was about to open something she had never imagined possible. With the success of Espacio Aconchego and partnerships with the city council and NGOs, she had secured funding to open the Strong Mother Center, a space dedicated exclusively to atypical mothers and fathers facing depression, burnout, or emotional crises. The center offered free or low-cost therapy, daily support groups, legal assistance for custody disputes, a specialized daycare for children, while parents received treatment workshops on income generation and entrepreneurship. It was the dream Morgan never knew she had, but it was a dream born from pain. On the day of the inauguration, hundreds of people showed up: mothers, fathers, mental health professionals, journalists. There were balloons, banners, a small stage set up in front of the building. Morgan was nervous, holding the speech she had prepared. Joshua stood beside her, holding her hand tightly. Mike was in the audience, smiling proudly. When it was time to speak, Morgan stepped onto the stage with Joshua. She looked out at that sea of hopeful faces and took a deep breath. 2 years ago, I was at rock bottom. Literally. I had lost my business, my marriage, almost lost my son, and almost lost my life. I thought there was no way out, that I was weak, that I was a bad mother. She paused, emotion tightening her throat. But I was wrong. I wasn't weak. I was sick. And illness isn't failure. It's just something that needs to be treated. With help, with support, with love. She looked at Joshua, who was gazing up at her with those big, proud eyes. My son taught me something no doctor ever could. He taught me that love doesn't give up. That love waits. That love heals. And that sometimes, the one who needs saving can also save. She pointed to the building behind her. This place exists for every mother and father who's been where I've been, who think they can't do it, who think they've failed. You haven't failed. You're human, and humans fall. But they also get back up. And this center will be here to help you get back up, as many times as it takes. The crowd erupted in applause. Many women cried. Some hugged each other. Morgan stepped off the stage and was embraced by dozens of people she had never met, but who shared her pain, her struggle, her victory. Mike approached, eyes glistening. You're amazing. I'm trying. No, you are. And I wanted to ask if you'd have dinner with me. Not as my ex-wife, not as Joshua's mom, but as someone I deeply admire and want to get to know again. The right way. Morgan looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. One day at a time, Mike. But yes, I'd like that. 6 months after the center's inauguration, Morgan's life was balanced. The center was running smoothly, helping dozens of families. She and Mike were rebuilding something, slowly, carefully, but honestly. Joshua was becoming increasingly communicative, happy, and secure. One Saturday afternoon, Morgan was at the center, finishing some paperwork. Mike had taken Joshua out for ice cream. It was a calm day, until the door opened and a woman walked in. She was in her early 50s, with gray hair, tired but kind eyes. Sorry to bother you, but are you Morgan? Yes, that's me. How can I help you? The woman approached hesitantly. My name is Beatrice. I was here a few months ago, in the support group. I was at rock bottom. I thought I was going to lose my daughter, my job, my sanity. Morgan remembered her vaguely. Of course. How are you now? I'm fine. Very well, actually. I regained custody of my daughter. I went back to work. I'm in therapy. And it's all thanks to you. To this place. Morgan smiled, touched. It wasn't thanks to me. You did the work. I just offered a space. No, it was more than that. Beatrice took Morgan's hand. You showed me that I wasn't alone, and that it was possible to recover. That's why I came here today to give this to you. She handed an envelope to Morgan. What is it? Open it. Morgan opened it. Inside was a check. A large check. Very large. Beatrice, I can't accept this. You can, and you will. I sold my house, paid off my debts, and this is what's left. I want you to use it to expand the center, to help more mothers, to build more places like this. Because if anyone deserves it, it's you. Morgan was speechless. I don't know what to say. Say nothing. Just keep doing what you do. Keep saving lives. Beatrice hugged Morgan and left, leaving her alone with the check in her hands. Morgan sat down, staring at that piece of paper, and realized something. She wasn't just saving herself anymore. She was saving others. And somehow, that gave meaning to all the pain she had gone through. A few months later, on a quiet evening, Joshua, Mike, and Morgan were in the living room, watching a movie. Joshua was lying between them, his head on Morgan's lap and his feet on Mike's. In the middle of the movie, Joshua sat up and looked at both of them. Mommy. Yes, my love. Joshua looked at Mike, then at Morgan, and then did something that took them both by surprise. He took Mike's hand and Morgan's hand and joined them, intertwining their fingers. Family. Morgan and Mike looked at each other, both with tears in their eyes. We are a family, yes, Morgan said softly. even if it's different from what it was before. Joshua shook his head, not satisfied. No, family together. He was asking them to be together, not just as co-parents, but as a real family. Mike looked at Morgan, seeing the emotion reflected in her eyes. Joshua, son, he began carefully. Mom and I are trying. We're building something new. But it takes time. Joshua furrowed his brow, processing. Then he did something completely unexpected. He climbed onto the couch, stood between them, and placed a hand on each of their faces, looking from one to the other with that unique intensity only he had. Mommy, forgive Daddy? Morgan felt her heart tighten. The question was so simple, yet carried so much weight. She looked at Mike, then at Joshua. I'm trying, my love. Daddy hurt Mommy a lot, but he's changed too, and we're learning to be friends again. Forgive? Joshua insisted, his voice small but firm. Mike held Morgan's hand, squeezing it gently. Son, Mommy doesn't have to forgive me just because you want her to. Some things take time. But Joshua didn't give up. He placed Morgan's hand over his heart, then did the same with Mike's hand. Heart sad, family together, heart happy. And in that moment, Morgan understood. It wasn't about her and Mike. It was about the heart of this child, who just wanted to see the people he loved at peace. Together, happy. She looked at Mike, really looked, for the first time in years, and saw not the man who had betrayed her, but the man standing before her now. The one who had returned the store, who had fought alongside her, who had changed, grown, become someone better. And she realized something surprising. The anger was gone. The hurt was still there, but it was healing. And beneath it all, there was still something. Maybe it wasn't the same love as before, but it was something new. Something that could be built. All right, she whispered, squeezing Mike's hand. I forgive you. Mike closed his eyes, and a tear fell. Thank you. I don't deserve it, but thank you. Joshua smiled, that rare and precious smile, and hugged both of them at the same time. And there, on that couch, for the first time in years, they felt like a real family. A year after that night, a lot had changed. Morgan and Mike were together again, not at the same frantic and careless pace as before, but consciously, deliberately, and healthfully. They attended couples therapy. They talked about everything, about the betrayal, about the pain, about how to rebuild trust. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when Morgan wanted to give up. But every time she looked at Joshua, at the peace in his eyes when he saw them together, she found the strength to keep trying. The May Forte Center had expanded. With Beatrice's donation and others that came later, Morgan managed to open 2 branches in nearby cities. Hundreds of families were being helped. And more importantly, Morgan had created a pioneering family reintegration program for parents who, like her, had lost custody of their children due to mental health issues. She had become a national reference. She gave lectures, interviews, and wrote a book about her journey that became a bestseller. But none of that mattered as much as what she had at home. Her child, healthy and happy, and a partner who, for the first time, truly saw her. It was a sunny Saturday morning. Morgan was in the kitchen preparing breakfast when Mike entered, holding Joshua's hand. The two had a conspiratorial air. "What are you two up to?" she asked, laughing. "Nothing," Mike said, but he was smiling. Joshua ran to her and handed her an envelope decorated with his drawings. "For you, Mommy." Morgan wiped her hands and opened the envelope. Inside was a handmade card. On the cover, Joshua had drawn the 3 of them together, her, Mike, and him, holding hands under a big yellow sun. She opened the card and read, "Mommy, you are the bravest person I know. Thank you for never giving up. Thank you for teaching me that falling is not the end. What matters is getting back up. You are my hero. I love you. Joshua." The handwriting was Mike's, but Morgan knew the feelings were Joshua's. She looked at her son, tears in her eyes. "Did you think of this?" Joshua nodded proudly. "And I helped write it," Mike said, approaching. "But the words are his." Morgan hugged Joshua tightly, kissing the top of his head repeatedly. "I love you so much, my love. So much." Then Mike knelt beside them, and Morgan noticed he was holding something. A small blue box. Her heart raced. "Mike," he opened the box, revealing a simple, beautiful ring. "I know we were married before, And I know I ruined everything that time, but I want to do it again, the right way, with honesty, respect, and true love. He looked into her eyes. Morgan, you taught me what it really means to love someone. It's not possession. It's support. It's being present. It's choosing every day to be better for the person you love. And I want to choose you every day for the rest of my life. Will you marry me? Morgan covered her mouth with her hand, tears flowing freely. She looked at Joshua, who was smiling from ear to ear, and then looked back at Mike. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Mike slid the ring onto her finger, and Joshua jumped into their arms, shouting with joy. And there, in that simple kitchen, smelling of fresh coffee and sunlight streaming through the window, that family was finally complete. Not perfect, because no one is, but real, honest, full of love. 3 months later, they got married again. But this time, it was different. It wasn't a big party with hundreds of guests. It was an intimate ceremony at the May Forte Center, with the people who truly mattered. The mothers and fathers from the support group, Helena, the social worker who had always believed in Morgan, Dr. Teresa, Denise, and a few others who had been part of the journey of rebuilding. Morgan wore a simple and elegant white dress. Mike wore a navy blue suit, and Joshua was the ring bearer, proudly dressed in a small suit matching his father's. When it was time for the vows, Mike went first. Morgan, a few years ago, I made promises to you that I couldn't keep. I promised to love you, to respect you, to protect you, and I failed at all of them. His voice trembled. But today, I am making new promises, and these I will keep. I promise to listen to you. I promise to support you. I promise to stand by your side on good days and bad. I promise to be the partner you deserve. And I promise, every day, to show you how much I value you and everything you are. Morgan wiped her tears, took a deep breath, and began. Mike, you hurt me in a way I never thought I could overcome. But you also showed me something important, that people can change, that mistakes do not define who we are forever. She held his hands firmly. This love we are building now is not the same as before. It's better, because it is based on truth, on forgiveness, on conscious choice. And I choose you, not because I need to, but because I want to, because you have become someone I admire, someone I truly love. Not a single eye was dry in the room when the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride." Mike and Morgan kissed. But the most special moment came right after. Joshua approached, hugging their legs. And there, the three of them embraced, while everyone applauded and cried with emotion. This was not just the union of a couple. It was the healing of a family that had almost been lost, but chose to fight. 5 years later, the May Forte Center had 10 branches across the country. Morgan had become one of the leading maternal mental health activists in America. Her book was in its 3rd edition, and most importantly, thousands of families had been reunited, healed, and rebuilt through her work. Joshua, now 13, attended a regular school with specialized support. He had friends, interests, dreams. He spoke more, although he still sometimes preferred to communicate in other ways. And he was happy, truly happy. Mike had become the administrative director of the center, managing finances and expansions. He and Morgan were true partners, in every sense of the word. One Sunday afternoon, the three of them were at the park. Joshua was walking a little ahead, watching birds, his new obsession, while Morgan and Mike strolled hand in hand behind him. "Did you ever imagine we'd get here?" Morgan asked. "No. Honestly, no." Mike squeezed her hand. "There were moments I thought I'd lost you forever. You almost did. I know. And I'll never forget that. I'll never take what we have for granted." Morgan rested her head on his shoulder. "You know what's funny? I spent so much time thinking my life was over when everything fell apart. But in reality, it was the beginning of something much bigger than I ever imagined. You turned your pain into purpose. We did. You, me, Joshua. We're proof that no matter how deep you fall, it's always possible to rise again." Joshua ran back to them, holding a bird feather he had found. "Look, Mom, it must be from a great kiskadee." Morgan took the feather, examining it with genuine interest. "It's beautiful, my love. Shall we keep it in your observation notebook?" Joshua nodded enthusiastically. The three of them continued walking as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. And Morgan thought it was worth it. Every tear, every pain, every moment of despair. Everything was worth it to get here. 5 years had passed, and Morgan was speaking in a large, packed auditorium. She looked out at the audience, ready to hear her, standing on the stage, smiling, confident, radiant. She whispered to herself, "I can do this," and began speaking from the depths of her heart. Many people ask me, "How did you do it? How did you get out of the depths and build all of this?" She pauses, and the answer is simple, but not easy. I succeeded because I was not alone. Even when I thought I was, there was someone fighting for me. Joshua, now an incredible young man, sat in the front row next to Mike. Both looked at her with immense pride. My son, who has autism, taught me the greatest lesson of my life. He taught me that love is not perfect. Love is not easy, but love does not give up. She wiped away a tear. When I was at my lowest, when I had decided that the world would be better without me, it was his love that brought me back. Not through words, but through presence, through persistence, through unwavering faith in me, even when I had no faith in myself. The audience was completely silent, many crying, and I learned that we, mothers, don't need to be perfect. We don't need to have all the answers. We don't need to carry the world alone. We just need to be present. We need to ask for help. We need to forgive ourselves. And we need to remember that our children don't need perfect mothers. They need real mothers. Mothers who fall but get back up. Mothers who make mistakes but learn. Mothers who are human. She smiled through her tears. So, if you're going through this and at the bottom of the pit, I want you to know, you are not alone. And this is not the end. It's just the beginning of something incredible. Because the best stories are those where the hero falls, but refuses to stay down. The audience rose to their feet in applause. Joshua stepped onto the stage and hugged his mother. Mike followed. The three embraced at the center of the stage as the crowd gave a standing ovation. She concluded her speech, holding both of their hands, saying, "To every mother who has ever felt lost, you are not alone, and you are stronger than you realize."